It's 1503, and we are at the island the Taíno call Haiti. The Spanish call it Hispaniola. And in the far southwest, in the kingdom of Jaragua, something extraordinary is happening. The governor of the island, Nicolás de Ovando, has arrived, and Anacaona, queen of Jaragua, the last free Taíno kingdom on the island, has thrown him a party. A big one. 80 of her noble caciques are there. There is food and dancing, and there are areítos, the song poems of the Taíno people. Anacaona herself composed some of them. She's performing her own songs for the man who at that point has probably already decided he is going to kill her. To understand what is happening at that party, we need to go back 10 years. In 1492, the Spanish crown is looking for a shortcut to Asia. The spice trade is worth a fortune, and the route around Africa is controlled by the Portuguese. So when a Genoese sailor named Christopher Columbus shows up with a plan to reach Asia by sailing west, they say yes. They give him 3 ships, about 90 men, and a letter of introduction to the Emperor of China. He sails for 2 months and hits land, but it's not China. It's this beautiful green and luscious island. The Taíno people who live there receive him with food, gifts, and with curiosity. In his journal, Columbus writes that the Taíno would make fine servants and that with 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. Now, Columbus needs to go back to Spain to report what he found, but he doesn't want to lose his claim on the island while he's gone. So he leaves about 40 men behind with instructions to stay put, trade with the locals, and wait for him to return with more ships and more men. Then he sails back to Spain to share the good news. When he returns, the men he left are dead. They had been assaulting Taíno women and stealing whatever they felt like. The Taíno eventually got sick of it, fought back, and killed them. Columbus's response is not to investigate or to acknowledge what his men did. He launches an immediate war of terror and enslaves any people he can get his hands on. The Taíno offer hospitality. The Spanish take everything. The Taíno defend themselves, the Spanish call it savagery, and again reach for their swords. Columbus makes 4 voyages in total. Each time he returns, he brings more men, more ships, and even more ambition. What starts as one man with a letter of introduction to the Emperor of China becomes a full colonial project. The Spanish crown smells money and sends more people, and those people need land and labor and gold. The Spanish take the Taínos' land by force and move in. They build settlements and appoint governors, and then they tell the Taíno that they owe them gold and cotton and food, and if they don't pay, they hurt them. Formally, they call this the encomienda system, and it's absurd. A Spanish settler points at a group of Taíno people, and they are now his. He works them in the mines, on the land, in his house, and in return, he teaches them about Jesus. That is literally the legal justification. Not to the Taíno, of course, they're just forced, but this is how the Spanish make it okay for themselves. Every Sunday, a priest shows up and reads to the Taíno from a book in a language they don't speak, so that somewhere in Spain, a document can get filed that says, "Soul saved." Apart from Jesus, the Spanish also bring disease, such as influenza, measles, and later smallpox. The Taíno have not encountered these before the coming of the Spanish, and they have no immunity to them. The colonizers don't even need their swords for this part. Whole communities are gone within years. Haiti, or Hispaniola at that time, has 5 kingdoms. All of them fight back. They don't just let the Spanish do what they want, but one by one they fall. The Taíno are fighting with wooden spears against armored men on horseback. It's not a fair fight. It was never going to be a fair fight. So the Taíno kingdom falls. All except one. In the far southwest of the island, there's a kingdom called Jaragua. It is the most prosperous kingdom on the island and the most culturally sophisticated. And it's still standing because of its queen, Anacaona. Her name means golden flower. Ana means flower, and Caona means gold in Taíno. She's born in Yaguana, which is present-day Léogâne in Haiti. She's a member of the ruling family of the region. Her brother Bohechio was the cacique, the ruler. Anacaona is royalty, but she's also something else. In Taíno society, the ancestors don't just disappear when they die. They stay present. They can be consulted, they can have opinions about harvests, about war, and about who should lead. And there are people whose job it is to reach them. They are spiritual leaders and healers. Later accounts remember Anacaona not just as a ruler, but as someone who moved in that spiritual space. On top of that, she's a composer of areítos. The areíto is the Taíno form of collective memory, a chanted, danced, and narrated poem performed in a village plaza and attended by everyone. It honors ancestors and gods, carries history, and keeps the collective identity alive. In a culture with no written language, the areíto is the library, and Anacaona is one of its authors. She is married to Caonabo. He is the cacique of Maguana, and he's no diplomat. When Columbus builds a settlement called La Navidad on the island, Caonabo burns it to the ground and kills every single Spaniard inside. He doesn't waste time talking. He fights back, and he fights back hard. The Spanish capture him in 1495 and put him on a ship bound for Spain. There he is to stand trial and be paraded in front of the crown so he can be made into a symbol of conquest. That ship sinks somewhere in the Atlantic. Anacaona's brother, Bohechio, dies in 1500, and Anacaona is now the cacica of Jaragua, the ruler. Think about what she's looking at that point. Every kingdom that fought is gone. Every cacique who raised a weapon against the Spanish is either dead or enslaved. Her own husband tried and then disappeared, but Jaragua is still free because of how she plays it. Anacaona pays tribute to the Spanish, and she cooperates. She hosts the Spanish officials, and when Columbus's brother Bartolome visits, she welcomes him, negotiates, and showers him with gifts. She's doing everything the Spanish want to see: a compliant native leader, manageable and useful. But she has also created a sanctuary. Taíno people fleeing slavery and violence from other parts of the island stream into her territory. Spanish rebels, men who have mutinied against their own colonial leadership, hide out there too. She is sheltering everyone the Spanish want to recapture while smiling her most charming smile at the governor. And for years, that works. While the rest of the island is being destroyed, Jaragua survives. Anacaona is buying time. Or maybe she genuinely believes coexistence is possible. Or maybe both. We can't know what was in her mind. What we can see is what she did, and what she did kept her people alive longer than anyone else managed. In 1502, a new governor arrives, Nicolás de Ovando. He comes with 2,500 soldiers, the largest Spanish force the Caribbean has ever seen. He's not there to administer. He is there to finish what Columbus started. Within a year, he has crushed the kingdom of Higüey in the east. His methods are so brutal that even Queen Isabella back in Spain receives complaints. But that all comes later. First, he wants to deal with Anacaona. He sends word to her, telling her he would like to visit, to celebrate their good relations. She says yes and prepares a feast. She gathers 80 of her caciques. She organizes the food, the dancing, and the areítos. She's doing what she has always done, extending the hand of hospitality, demonstrating civilization, and making herself useful and unthreatening. Ovando arrives, he eats, he watches the performances, and then he gives the signal. It happens very fast. The Spanish tell the assembled caciques they are going to stage a jousting tournament and invite them to come inside the longhouse to watch. The caciques go in the longhouse. The doors are closed, and outside the soldiers are already moving through the crowd. 80 caciques are seized and bound inside. Outside, the killing begins. The 80 caciques inside the longhouse are burned alive. Anacaona is arrested. The charge, according to the Spanish, is conspiracy. She had been planning a rebellion. The evidence for this comes from torture. But that doesn't matter because this was never a fair trial. It was always an execution waiting for a pretext. One account says that when she was imprisoned, Anacaona recited a verse. "It is not honorable to kill, nor can honor propitiate tragedy. Let us open a bridge of love so that across it even our enemies may walk and leave for posterity their footprints." Whether she actually said that is not certain. The recounting comes through colonial sources, but it sounds like something she could have written. She's taken to Santo Domingo and put on trial in public. The torture-extracted testimony of her murdered nobles is presented as evidence. She is then hanged in the public square and her body is left on display to send a message. It's good to note that almost everything we know about her comes from Spanish sources: Las Casas, Fernández de Oviedo, and Columbus himself. And Las Casas is the most sympathetic. He genuinely believed the conquest was a moral catastrophe and said so loudly. Oviedo, who was the island's first official colonial historian, is worse. He describes Anacaona as sexually available to any European who wanted her, which tells us nothing about Anacaona and everything about Oviedo. Her own songs are gone. The areíto she composed and performed at that feast that carried the history of her people, none of those survived. But to a degree, she did survive. Not physically, of course, but in memory. In Haiti, she is a national symbol. And in some voodoo traditions, Anacaona is honored in ways very close to Loa, a spirit among the ancestors who can still be invoked, though that is not a formal doctrine everywhere. She was the author of songs no one will ever hear again. She was the last ruler of the last free kingdom of Haiti. She kept her people alive through a decade when everyone around her was dying, through diplomacy, performance, and intelligence. And in the end, none of it was enough, because Ovando and the other Spaniards had not come to negotiate. They had come to take, to own, and to kill.